guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery, and very excited to have Brandon Marcello, one of the smartest guys in the strength and conditioning field, with us today. Brandon is the Director of Sports Performance at Stanford University. He's been the Director of Strength and Conditioning for U.S.A. Softball, where he has a silver medal. He has a PhD in nutrition from Baylor and a wealth of experience in both the athletic and in the private performance settings, having worked at IMG, Baylor, a co-founder in Athletes Performance. And we're going to talk today about how he's integrated all those experiences into how he trains 35 of the most highly competitive sports at Stanford. They're competitive in everything out there. Many of the teams having Olympians on their team. And how he coordinates all that and produces great results every year, as well as how he coordinates that within his staff from a continuing education standpoint and an implementation standpoint. So I had a chance to sit down with Brandon for about 2 hours one night after getting ready for a conference that we were both speaking at, and I was writing notes like a madman. So I know you're going to get something out of this. Sit back and enjoy. Real quick before we get started, we are very excited to announce that Play Sports Flooring has come on as the sole sponsor of Iron Game Chalk Talk. They have a phenomenal product that I believe in and have proven to me that they are committed to being much more than an equipment vendor to us strength coaches. They are committed to assisting the strength coach through product education and great customer support. Make sure to go check out their website at www.USA.com. Now, sit back and enjoy this episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk. All right, guys, we got a treat today. We have Brandon Marcello in the house, coming from the farm out in Stanford, and he's overlooking his weight room right there, his palace, one of three anyways. But Brandon, it's good to have you on the show, man.
I appreciate it. It's good to be here. Thanks, Ron.
Hey, brother, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. You know, how you got into the field, and then, what's a guy with a PhD doing counting reps, you know?
Yeah. Well, how I got into the field was I was doing an internship out of college, and, I was unsure really which avenue to take. The only advice I was getting from my advisors was, well, you can do corporate wellness or cardiac rehab, both of which didn't, excite me to the least extent. So my internship led me to working with athletes. I grew up in South Florida and down in Sarasota, and there's a lot of places for athletes to train down there, and I was lucky enough to come across one and get this internship, and I just fell in love with it. And after that, did my graduate assistantship at Marshall, worked with the programs there, which was awesome. Then ended up working down at IMG Academies after that, still doing the same thing, more in the private sector though. Then that led me to move out to Arizona and help co-found Athletes Performance. And after that, I decided to go back to school. I thought working in the pro industry was a little too easy. So you already had these guys who chose their parents well,
No doubt.
with everything they did. And I had all the resources in the world, all of the time in the world, and really just don't mess them up. So, I want to look into something else, and so I went back to get my PhD, and then decided to go back into the college world.
You have a unique model there at Stanford. Talk a little bit about the model in which you implement your strength and conditioning program.
Well, I think the big thing is to understand that strength and conditioning has kind of evolved, and that's why we call it now sports performance, because we used to be in just a strength and conditioning world to where all we focused on was just really strength and the conditioning aspect. That's changed, and there's a lot of other aspects and a lot of the facets that come into play. Some of them being, yoga and sleep and nutrition and recovery and regeneration. So because I understand they're important, I want to integrate those into the system. But I do also understand that I'm not an expert in all of those fields. That being said, I've kind of reached out to the Stanford community and tapped into them and reached out to their experts in their respective fields of study, and really have allowed them to come in and brought them in to help us try and improve the performance of our student athletes. So, for instance, we have a yoga and Pilates specialist on my staff now. She was working within the Department of Recreation at Stanford, so reached out to her, and now she's full-time on my staff. The Center for Sleep is located on campus about 10 minutes away from where I'm sitting right now. They've been very helpful in providing us information on sleep and sleep patterns and providing sleep education to our athletes. So, the list really goes on and on and on. As really as far as your imagination will take you. There's somebody out there who can kind of help improve the level of performance for your athletes.
When you talk about having all those different people on staff, how are you coordinating those efforts? You got 35 people that you kind of deal with and want to go 35 different ways sometimes. Are you doing staff meetings? Are you meeting with them one-on-one and then it's trickling on down? How does that process look?
Well, in terms of staff meetings, we do have a centralized staff meeting that we have every Wednesday. That just happens to be the day in the middle of the week. It kind of lets us, I chose Wednesday because it gives us some time to get through the week and see if anything has come up and allows us to kind of implement some things the second half of the week. And that's just a general type of just overview of just getting on the same page, making sure everybody is up to date on whether it's changes in policies and procedures for the department, budget updates, things that need to be disseminated down to the rest of the staff, whatever it might be, takes place on Wednesday. Within that staff meeting, though, every person on staff has an administrative type of duty, much like every other staff in the country. So I have a GA coordinator, another person on my staff is an internship coordinator, somebody else handles community service, somebody else handles social networking, facilities, the list goes on and on and on. They give their updates in the respective areas, and then we also spend some time doing some staff education as the follow-up to that type of meeting. In addition to that, every Monday we spend at least anywhere from 5 minutes to maybe 20 minutes on staff education, where we just might go over a specific exercise, revisit an exercise which we've done numerous times, but pretty much all want to get on the same page. We do have a type of all hands on deck policy to where if we're in the weight room, we just help out anybody, no matter what team's in there. It doesn't have to be your specific team.
Right.
So it allows everybody to kind of hone their skills in a little bit. And then during that time, whatever we spoke about on one particular Monday, the following Monday, the GAs and the interns will then teach that same exercise the week after.
We both value continuing education quite a bit. And, when we sat down and talked down there in Houston, you talked quite a bit about bringing the experts in. I thought that was a great, I think you phrased it as the innovators of a concept. Mm-hmm. You brought those people in and made sure that, you were going straight to the source on things.
Right.
Talk a little bit about how you've kind of structured that. I know you placed a lot of it in kind of those, leading into finals. It's kind of when you place those types of training events. But then also, how did you go about walking into a new environment when you first got to Stanford and said, education is going to be an emphasis for me and my staff, and we need to find money for that, and then some of the creative ways you found money for that?
Well, I think the thing to look at is just, if you're going to step into an organization like Stanford where, the student athletes, and a lot of people call them scholar athletes, are really at a high level, both academically and athletically, education has to be, pretty high on your list of things that you want to do. They're always getting themselves better athletically and academically, and I think in order to achieve buy-in and really allow them to reach their goals, we need to make sure that we hold up our end of the bargain as well, from the standpoint of doing as many things as possible and expanding our toolbox as much as possible to give them as many tools so they can get better at what they want to achieve. So education is, I think, is just key to the success of that. Secondarily to that, in terms of bringing out people, we see it so many times in the industry. You'll hear somebody talk about like the tier system, and everybody has their own spin on it, which is great, and I think it's important to learn those types of spins to it. But in order to fully appreciate the entire model, you need to go all the way back to the person who started it. Or even active isolated stretching. People always have their little spins on it and take away and do specific things that they have found works for them. But at the same time, some inventor or innovator of that system has come up with that system and that particular sequence and particular rationale behind it, because they put a lot of thought into it and a lot of research and a lot of time. And I think those things need to be appreciated, and that's where we will bring these people out to Stanford Because one, I think it's a lot cheaper than flying your whole staff to a conference, hearing somebody speak about whatever it might be that you might want to hear or might not want to hear. And then if you have to ask a question, you have to stand in line with about 400 other people and maybe just get 30 seconds of an answer in. So we like to reach out to those people, bring them in around finals time and dead week time, because training is pretty much non-existent during finals time. The athletes will come in between the hours of 10 and 3 and get their training in, and then that allows us some time to learn as a staff. So this Friday, Joe Ken will be out.
Again.
Again. And I want him to speak on the maintaining the integrity of his template. So over the years, he's learned a lot of different things and picked up some different things and changed some things, but yet the integrity of his template has always stayed the same. Right. So I want him to speak on that. And he's already going to be out here because of the Hammer Strength Clinic, but it's just a great way to bring him out here and to give us some education.
No doubt.
Now, I know you asked also in terms of finding funds for that. We're lucky enough here to have, and a lot of universities have this, but people don't know about it. You and I spoke about it briefly. Right. With these STAP funds is what they call them at Stanford. It's professional development funds that everybody on the staff gets. Every college and university may or may not have them, or if they do, they could be different amounts. They could be anywhere from maybe $200 to maybe $1,500, depending on where you go. And then that's to develop you, and you can spend it toward conference registration, certifications, really whatever you want to. So everybody on my staff has those funds. We do attend one conference every year together. We all go to Perform Better down at Long Beach. And we continue to bring people out. And like I said, we have staff education every week, at least 2 sessions of it, just to try and get better, which I think is the key, to understand that we don't know everything. We're never going to know everything, but it doesn't mean you don't try.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Well, it's important to note that those staff funds, they weren't limited to just the strength department or even the athletic department. That's a university
correct
dollar, and that's something to to dive into. Coaches watching, dive into your current situation and say, hey, look, is there something like this that exists? I thought that was a great takeaway from sitting down and talking to you. Another great takeaway was we talked quite a bit about leadership. And the role that you've the value you place on leadership, not just with your own staff, but with working with your athletes. And you had recommended a book to me called Mob Rules, which I loved and it implemented automatically into our staff development reading list. But talk a little bit about how you go about, because you're dealing with a little bit different clientele. They're still kids. They're still 18 to 22-year-old kids, but they're a higher level educated athlete typically. But you still go about making sure that you're implementing some leadership components and finding ways to develop leadership within with each of those athletes. So what are some of the methods that you use to address that?
Well, I think the big thing is to really just put the faith into them. No matter if it's your staff or your student athletes, it's empowering them and providing them with the information which is going to make them better. Investing in them, if you will. It goes back to the old saying: they don't care how much you know until you know how much they know how much you care.
Right.
Type of scenario. And I think in terms of leadership, that's really what it comes down to: is taking a vested interest in the athletes. But when taking a vested interest in the athletes, it's not just about their athletic performance, it's about them as people. And understand that they are people. Whether they're 18 to 22 or not, like you said, they are that age, but nonetheless, they are people.
Right.
And I think they should be treated, that way. So I encourage, most of my staff and interns and GAs to really learn as much as you can about other things besides this profession. Mm-hmm. And especially here at Stanford, it helps because I might talk with an athlete, and who's for instance, there's a kid here who's taking a theater class, a lighting class, one of my student athletes, and we're on the road, and she needs some help with a lighting plot. I jumped in there and helped her out. I just happen to have some knowledge in that area, right. Of stage lighting, or people who might have understand music or art or science. So you don't have to know everything about it, but to be connected in some way, shape, or form to the rest of the world, because right. You could have a student athlete who's an international relations major, And if you can talk about current events with them, they know that you appreciate something that they appreciate, and that, in a sense, creates sort of a bond or connection with the athlete.
Sure.
I think that's going to be critical and paramount to the success of that, is to understand these kids on an athletic level and an academic level and on a personal level.
Right.
So, and I think once you have that buy-in, that leadership definitely comes, because then they're going to follow you.
Right.
They know that you care about them as people, and they know that what you're doing is you're putting a lot of time and effort into it, and then they're willing to give that back to you and respond with hard work and effort.
Well, that kind of goes hand in hand with the next thing I was going to talk about. One of the things that has impressed me about you on two occasions. One being we're about to go play a game, and one of your former athletes comes running up. She's a reporter, and wants to talk strength and conditioning shop with me before a game, just because of the impact that you had on her and her career as an athlete, and that was powerful. Then hanging out with you at a conference, and the night that night you're going and hanging out with another former athlete and her parents to have dinner. You seem to have a great relationship with your athletes. Obviously that stems from you investing in them and showing that you care, but has there been anything that you've done through your career that's really stood out as a way to really develop that tight-knit bond with your athletes?
Well, I think I don't know if it's anything, just being giving people what they deserve. Just like you do, and you've done on countless occasions. You have great relationships with your athletes, some to this day still, that you keep in tight contact with, and
no doubt.
You get invited to weddings and things like that, because people want you part of your special moments in their life, and that's really what it's about. I think there's really two types of coaches. Those that coach to define their lives, and those that coach to enrich their lives. And the ones that utilize coaching to define their lives will never be happy, because they want to get this next championship, and they win it and they're not happy because they don't have that feeling within of fulfillment.
Right.
And I think if you can invest in the athletes and help them and just give them a hand, I think that's key. Sometimes you need a kick in the butt, but that comes down to reading the athlete and understanding them better. But sometimes it's about the kids that are kind of resistant to training. It's about not giving up on them. I mean, not screaming at their face and yelling and screaming, but not giving up on them.
Right.
Keep pushing them every single day. And I'll tell them, the ones that that are very resistant to training, I'm just going to keep on you, just so you know.
Right.
Get mad, don't get upset, and the ones that don't pass their conditioning test at the beginning of the year, I don't get mad at them either. I'm like, what can we do now? Let's figure out where we are, and let's get you to where you need to be.
Sure.
And sometimes it's just nice to know that they have somebody in their corner, for good or for bad.
Mm. Well, it goes back into why you got into coaching in the first place. Did you get into coaching to make an impact on a young person's life, or did you get into coaching to win championships only? And I know you're a competitive person, and I'm a competitive person, but some of the best moments in my coaching careers have been those moments after they've played, or even while they're playing, when you have an impact on their life outside of that. And I think that's why we're all here.
Yeah, no question.
All right, kind of a quick kick segment here called the 2-minute warning here. I wanted you to give me some and people listening some just some basic recommendation, a book recommendation. Do you got a book that you're reading right now, or do you think there's a book that every strength coach should read?
I do. Positive Intelligence.
Positive Intelligence. Who's that by?
Intelligence. Yeah. Shirzad Chamine. SHIRZAD CHAMINE. He was a Stanford MBA student, actually. It's just about using the power of positive intelligence to kind of allow you to navigate through the decision-making process, innovation, all types of things in life. It's really, really a great read. Just finished it.
Is there a website or an online resource that you go to regularly to kind of from a personal development standpoint?
TED Talks.
TED Talks.
TED Talks. Yep.
I got the app on my phone too.
Yeah.
Is there an app that you recommend? Something that you guys are maybe using in your department, or something that athletes have benefited from?
I tell you one thing that I like, as corny as it sounds, Twitter, because you can just keep your thumb on so many different industries and so many different people, just to get at least ideas. 140 characters or less, you get this idea, and it just might provoke a little bit of thought with you. So I really like it, whether it's current events or whether it's training philosophies or nutrition facts, whatever it might be. You can pull from there, and it's just simple.
You've had a wide range of experiences with different mentors, coaches. Who are some of the coaches that you've had that have had the biggest influence in your life?
Well, number one, Daryl Leto, who's the head strength coach down at the Houston Rockets. That guy if I was an athlete, I would want him to train me, no question. He's been just a great influence. I consider him my mentor. Other people I think are fantastic in the field who I use as resources are Joe Ken, you know that, James Harris, who's now at the Philadelphia Eagles, heading up their nutrition, formerly at Oregon.
Yep.
Michael Boyle's been a great friend for a number of years, who I've been able to tap into him. Mark Verstegen has been a good friend. Lee Burton, Function Movement Systems, has been a great friend and colleague over the years. Really just the list goes on and on and on. I think I can take something away from everybody in this profession, without a doubt, good or bad.
Sure.
If I had to pick the one person, though, Daryl Leto is my guy.
Well, you can't. The important message in that is that you can't get to a Stanford, being the director of a Stanford, without having some people along the way kind of help develop you. And I know you agree with that. Yeah. What's a quote that you kind of live by?
One of my favorite quotes is, "Discovery consists of seeing what everyone has seen and thinking what no one has thought."
That's pretty good. I like that. Yeah. I like that. Well, hey, Brandon, I appreciate you coming on, man. I know it's in the middle of your day out there, but I know the coaches that watch us get a ton out of it and appreciate guys like you that come on and share a little bit of wisdom. What are some ways that people can stay up with what you got going on? I know you're pretty active on Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter's good. That's probably the best way of keeping up with us. Or if people want to reach out to me, I'm fine with just chatting with them as well. I get calls or emails, every week from. Doesn't matter who you are. If you're an intern and don't think I have time for you, don't think that, I will call you back. I can't promise when. Right. May not right away, but I'll get back to everybody who sends me an email or calls me, or I do my best. Sometimes people do fall through the cracks, but whether you're a GA trying to get somewhere, you're an assistant. I talked with a guy last week who was just an assistant in the field who's trying to get a little better and just wanted some feedback. I gave him my 2 cents.
Sure.
I'll tell him what I think. Whether it was helpful or not, I don't know. But anybody, I'm glad to chat with them because it just makes the profession better. As you and I know, talking shop.
Right.
We had more fun that night, and that hour, 2 hours we spent down there at the lobby of a hotel. Just picking each other's brains, which was great. So that's what it's all about, is just talking and trying to get better. So anyone can reach out to me, or Twitter works, any of those.
Great, man. Well, hey, Brad, I appreciate you coming on. And like I said, I think these things make a huge impact on young coaches' lives, and I know you do that on a daily basis. So I appreciate it, bud.
Coach, thanks for having me, and you're doing great stuff out there yourself. So thanks for taking the initiative to do things like this. It's good stuff.
Absolutely, man. Take care.
All right, man.
Okay, guys, a couple quick announcements before we let you go. As usual, you'll be able to get to all the links that Brandon mentioned down below in the show notes. So make sure you go down there and get those. But real excited about our events in Detroit and Baltimore. Football Strong Clinics. We have great lineups at both places. Make sure that you go to ronmckeefery.com/FB Strong, Football Strong, FB Strong, to check out the lineups and to register online for that. $75 early bird registration. Make sure you go and do that so that you don't hit with the fees after that. Next, teaser alert here. Strength on demand. I've been stuck behind a computer for the last couple of weeks, months, really working on this. Real excited about what we got coming out here pretty soon. But I wanted to kind of tease you a little bit. Strength on demand. Make sure you're looking for that coming down your way here pretty soon. So have a good week, and we'll see you next week with a new episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk.